Welcome to Bible Devotionals. It's been a couple of weeks since we've done one, but it's good to be back. And I hope that as you listen to the readings from God's Word, the poem, think about a biography, and hopefully get a little time out to focus your mind on some of the things that the Bible teaches, that'll be a great encouragement to you. I've really enjoyed preparing for this one, and I hope these continue to be a blessing to you. Please share them with your friends. Please get back to me if you've got questions, but most of all, please delve into and enjoy the Word of God. Thanks for watching. Our poem today is called Be Not Weary. It's by Francis Rigby Havergal. There are 5 verses. I'm just going to share that with you just now. Yes, he knows the way is dreary, knows the weakness of our frame, knows that hand and heart are weary. He in all points felt the same. He is near to help and bless. Be not weary, onward press. Look to him who once was willing all his glory to resign, that for thee the law fulfilling all his merit might be thine. Strive to follow day by day where his footsteps mark the way. Look to him, the Lord of glory, tasting death to win thy life, gazing on that wondrous story. Canst thou falter in the strife? Is it not new life to know that the Lord hath loved thee so? Look to him who ever liveth, interceding for his own. Seek ye claim the grace he giveth freely from his priestly throne. Will he not thy strength renew with his Spirit's quickening dew? Look to him, and faith shall brighten, hope shall soar, and love shall burn. Peace once more thy heart shall lighten. Rise, he calleth thee, return. Be not weary on thy way. Jesus is thy strength and stay. The portion of the Bible that we're reading from today in our scripture reading is John chapter 8, and we're reading from verses 31 to 45. So if you have a Bible handy, you may want to pick that up and read it with me. Then said Jesus to those Jews which believed on him, If you continue in my word, then are you my disciples indeed. And you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. They answered him, We be Abraham's seed, and were never in bondage to any man. How sayest thou, Ye shall be made free? Jesus answered them, Verily, verily, I say unto you, whosoever committeth sin is the servant of sin. And the servant abideth not in the house forever, but the Son abideth forever. If the Son therefore shall make you free, you shall be free indeed. I know that you are Abraham's seed, but you seek to kill me, because my word hath no place in you. I speak that which I have seen with my father, and you do that which you have seen with your father. They answered and said unto him, Abraham is our father. Jesus said unto them, If you were Abraham's children, you would do the works of Abraham. But now you seek to kill me, a man that hath told you the truth, which I have heard of God. This did not Abraham. Ye do the deeds of your father. Then said they to him, We be not born of fornication. We have one Father, even God. Jesus said unto them, God were your Father, you would love me. For I proceeded forth and came from God. Neither came I of myself, but he sent me. Why do you not understand my speech? Even because you cannot hear my word. You are of your father, the devil, and the lusts of your father you will do. He was a murderer from the beginning, and abode not in the truth, because there is no truth in him. When he speaketh a lie, he speaketh of his own, for he is a liar, and the father of it. And because I tell you the truth, you believe me not. May God bless his sacred word to us today. I'd like to tell you today something about the life story of Billy Graham. Billy Graham was a world famous evangelist in You may know his name pretty well because he has only gone to heaven in recent years. Billy Graham became a Christian in 1934 at a revival meeting. That same year, his father hosted a prayer meeting at the family farm. One of the participants, a man named Vernon Patterson, prayed that out of Charlotte, which was where they lived, the Lord would raise up someone to preach the gospel to the ends of the earth. If we take the story forward 12 years, Billy Graham is 30 at this stage, and he's already a pretty well-known evangelist. And he has a crisis of faith. Could he really trust the Bible to be the Word of God? He had a friend called Chuck Templeton, and he and others were raising doubts in Billy Graham's heart and mind. He tells this story in his autobiography, which is called Just As I Am. He says, "I took a walk in the moonlight of the San Bernardino Mountains in California. I dropped to my knees in the wood, opened my Bible and put it on a tree stump and prayed, 'Oh God, there are many things in this book that I do not understand. There are many problems for which I have no solution. There are many seeming contradictions. There are some areas that do not seem to correlate with modern science. I can't answer some of these philosophical and psychological questions that people are raising. But I'm going to accept this to be thy word by faith. I'm going to allow faith to go beyond my intellectual questions and doubts, and I will believe this to be your inspired word." He says, "When I got up from my knees at Forest Home that August night, my eyes stung with tears. I sensed the presence and the power of God as I had not sensed it in months. Not all my questions were answered, but a major bridge had been crossed. In my heart and mind, I knew a spiritual battle in my soul had been fought and won." No one back in 1934 thought that Billy Graham would become a very famous and well-known evangelist, probably the most well-known evangelist that the world has ever known beyond Bible times. He learned to trust God. He believed in the power of prayer. He believed that God was the only reason people became Christians. God spoke to people, convicted them of their sin, brought their attention to his Son. It was the preacher who preached the word, but faith came by hearing the word of God. There is a lovely story that's told about a luncheon that Billy Graham was invited to in January 2000. It was back in his hometown of Charlotte. They invited him to honour him. He hesitated because his health was not good at this stage. He was assured he wasn't expected to give a major talk, but just come. And so he agreed. Many wonderful stories were told and tributes were paid. He stood up eventually and went to the microphone, and he said this: "Today I'm reminded of Albert Einstein, the great physicist, who this month has been honoured by Time magazine as the man of the century." And he told a story about Albert Einstein, who was travelling once from Princetown, and he was on a train, and the conductor came down the aisle looking for tickets to punch. When he came to Einstein, Einstein reached into his pocket. He couldn't find his ticket. So he searched, as we all would do, every pocket. He looked in his briefcase. He looked at the seat, under the seat. The conductor said, "Dr. Einstein, I know who you are. We all know who you are. I'm sure you bought a ticket. Don't worry about it." Einstein nodded appreciatively. The conductor continued down the aisle, collecting tickets. As he was ready to move to the next car, he turned and saw the great physicist on his hands and knees looking under the seat. He rushed back and he said, Dr. Einstein, don't worry. I know who you are. No problem. You don't need a ticket. I'm sure you bought one." Einstein looked at him. He said, "Young man, I too know who I am. What I don't know is where I'm going." Dr. Graham continued, "You see, this suit I'm wearing," he said, "it's a brand new suit. My wife, my children, my grandchildren are telling me that I'm getting a little bit slovenly in my old age. They say I used to be more fastidious about my dress, so I went out and bought a new suit for this occasion. This is the suit in which I'll be buried, but when you hear I'm dead, I don't want you to think about the suit I'm wearing. I want you to remember this: I not only know who I am, but I know where I'm going. You see, he preached for a lifetime about Christ and his death, and about his resurrection, about the forgiveness of sins, about the certainty of heaven. He was a very humble man. His son Franklin Graham said that the man you saw preach was the same man you saw at home. He wasn't any different in the house to whenever he was preaching. He was a man who valued the presence of God. There's stories told about when he came to London to preach, that he was terrified that nobody would come. Nobody would come to the meetings. Nobody would attend. And he went to the great stadium in London and he prayed for hours each afternoon that God would move mightily. And so he did. Many souls were saved. He went to heaven at the age of 99. He was an old man, full of years, and lived his life telling people about the Lord Jesus. And what a great example, that we might tell forth the glories of God. He started by preaching in front of pubs and houses of ill repute. He would be chased. He would be told to leave. He started preaching to people in poverty and tragedy. And he may have travelled the world preaching to many millions of people and standing before kings and presidents. But he knew this: the gospel of the grace of God was for every living soul, whether the poor, the disadvantaged, those who have been maimed by life and damaged, or those who have lived in the heart of success. May God bless us as we think about those who have given their all to tell men and women about our Lord Jesus. Our Bible teaching today is from the book of Ruth, and we're in chapter 2, and we're just going to read the first 3 verses. And Naomi had a kinsman of her husband's, a mighty man of wealth, of the family of Elimelech, and his name was Boaz. And Ruth the Moabitess said unto Naomi, Let me now go to the field and glean ears of corn after him in whose sight I shall find grace. And she said unto her, Go, my daughter. And she went and came and gleaned in the field after the reapers. And her hap was to light on a part of the field belonging unto Boaz, who was of the kindred of Elimelech. Now we're into the 2nd chapter in the book of Ruth, and this very interesting little book. And we've already dealt with chapter 1, where we discovered them going down to live in Moab. And then we discovered in the second part of the chapter that they returned to Bethlehem. Chapter 2 is essentially about Ruth in the fields of Boaz. We're going to be introduced to this man Boaz and this part of the account of the book of Ruth. We will discover in this chapter that Ruth is a carer. It's good to be a caring person, isn't it? We'll also discover that she's a hard worker. She's extremely humble. She's not afraid to associate herself with those who are poor, and she's not afraid to do humble work, which would fit in with the previous comments about her. We're also going to discover that Boaz, the man we're going to be introduced to, he is a beautiful picture of the Lord Jesus Christ. He's a gentleman. He's a good employer. And he is a picture of the Lord Jesus doing everything that is required to purchase his bride. In the Lord Jesus' case, that being the church; the case of Boaz, that being Ruth herself. So it's a delightful continuation of this story of a girl who's married and bereaved. She's widowed. She makes a very loyal choice to come back with Naomi, and she's loyal to the God of Israel, and she's going to be introduced to a man that will change her life completely. And that's a beautiful picture of salvation as well, isn't it? We also need to keep in mind from now on throughout the book of Ruth of the principle of what is called in Israel the Levirate marriage. I'll go back to this when we get to chapter 4, possibly in chapter 3 a little bit. But the principle is, it was established in Deuteronomy and chapter 25, that if a man died, his brother was expected to marry his widow, and the first child, indeed all the children could be, but the first child was expected to be named after the deceased. So it was a method by which the name of somebody didn't disappear. It's called the Levirate marriage. There's also a principle of ownership and property that runs through, and there is a little bit of a debate as to which one is applicable here, so it'd be good to think about both. But Leviticus 25 verses 23 to 34 deal with the right of reclaiming property for someone who has had to give it up because of poverty, which I think would probably be the case with Elimelech and the family as they moved down to Moab. But let's go to verses 1 to 3. The scene is set. The scene is set in the sense of verse 1, we're introduced to this man, Boaz. Now, he's a relative of Naomi's. He says he's a kinsman of her husband's. That idea of a kinsman, a close relative, comes up, especially in relation to the law of property in Leviticus chapter 25 and in the Levirate marriage rules in Deuteronomy chapter 25. The close relative, of course, the picture here is of the Lord Jesus, who purchases by his death the right to redeem us, save us, forgive us, and reinstate the blessings that were lost because of the fall. There is a beautiful parallel there. Notice what it says about this man, Boaz. He's a mighty man of wealth. And that has got the idea of strength and influence. In other passages, there's sometimes called a mighty man of valour. This man is a man of great dignity, a man of great character, a man who's trustworthy and compassionate. He's a beautiful picture of the Lord Jesus. And we're told in verse 1, he's of the family of Elimelech. There's the evidence that he qualifies to be the Redeemer. Now, the name Boaz, we're told at the end of the first verse, his name is Boaz. That name, well, there's a little bit of debates. It's sometimes hard to work out what some of these Old Testament names mean. It could mean quickness or swiftness, and that would be nice because he does react very quickly when the situation arises. It also could mean in him is strength, and that is also very nice to consider. Verse 2, it brings us to Naomi. She's called Ruth the Moabitess. She's identified by her background. Her identity is not lost. She comes back to Israel. She'll invariably be known as that as you read through Scripture. Not that she's mentioned a lot, but she is a woman that God blesses despite her national background, despite her poverty, despite her widowhood. And in fact, we're going to discover in a moment or two that God loves to bless people who are vulnerable and disadvantaged. We'll come back to that in a moment or two. But she's a great desire to provide for her mother-in-law. There's a lovely thing here. She says to Naomi, let me now go to the field. So she wants to go to the field to glean ears of corn. And she's a woman of great insight. She's willing to work. She anticipates hard work. But she's also, I wonder if she understood this rule of provision for widows and people who were from other nationalities, strangers or aliens, or people who are disadvantaged. I'm going to talk about that in a moment, but I wonder if she knew those things. I wonder if Naomi had taught her. She says, let me go now to the field, glean ears of corn after him in whose sight I shall find grace. And she understood this principle that she had no rights nationally. Just like somebody coming into our country doesn't have rights automatically, though our country is very kind in its provision for people who come from other countries and seek asylum, etc. But it's grace that provides that. It's not an inheritance. It's not birth. You see, that's like us as believers. What we have through the Lord Jesus is because of the grace of God. It's not ours by right. We don't get it because of birth or because of status or because of nationality. And so she says, I want to find grace. Now, She says, let me go and glean. And mother-in-law says, go, my daughter, go. And so they're united in their vision and in their desire. Now, when you read verse 3, you'd think it was all a coincidence, because it says, she went and came, she came to the field, she gleaned in the field after the reapers, and her hap was to light. I used to listen to an old preacher. He wasn't old then, but I thought he was. And he used to talk about her hap happened. It's like a happening, a coincidental event. Well, it was as far as Ruth was concerned, but not in God's eyes. God plans. God is in control. God organises our days. He doesn't manipulate us. We make our choices, but somehow he works out his purposes. And there's divine direction and oversight and care and provision and providence overlooking the events. And here she is. She arrives in the field of the one man who can help her. He's a close relative. He's a mighty man of valour and strength. He's both got the ability and the character. And we're going to discover later on the willingness to help. I want, just as I conclude our thoughts for today, to remind you that God cares for and provides for the widow and the stranger. And there's a host of verses. I'm just going to tell you a smattering of them. Deuteronomy chapter 10. God executes the judgment of the fatherless and the widow and loves the stranger in giving him food and raiment. God looks for justice and care. Expects societies to do that and governments to do that as well. Deuteronomy 14. God says that you shouldn't forsake those who are strangers, that's outsiders, fatherless, widows. They shall come and eat and be satisfied. He warns his people Israel in Deuteronomy 24, verse 17 to 22, not to pervert the course of justice when it comes to strangers, fatherless, not to take widows' raiments as a pledge, as a guarantee. Don't leave her cold and destitute. But one of the passages, that this very passage, should I say, in Deuteronomy 24, is so relevant to where we're reading, because it says there, when you cut down your harvest in the field and you forgot to take a sheaf, don't go again to fetch it. I'm just paraphrasing it. It shall be for the stranger, the fatherless, and the widow. So when they farmed, they were to leave at the edge of their fields provision for the poor. And there are so many other verses. God loves to provide for the needy. The Lord Jesus did it. He was just like his Father. He healed the brokenhearted. The bruised reed he would not break. He cared for those who are disadvantaged. So should we who are Christians as well. We have a God who cares and a God who's willing and interested in providing for us. Now, we will come back to Ruth in the next episode, but mull those things over in your mind just now, and may God bless his word to you. Well, that's us at the end of another Bible devotional episode. It's been really good to have your company. I hope you will reflect on the importance of relationship, the importance of God's plans and purposes, his overseeing hand, his concern, and I trust that it will encourage you and help you. Maybe you're going through difficult times. It's good, isn't it, to reflect on God's interests. We are left to make our choices, but somehow he is still caring and providing and overseeing the affairs of our life. So goodbye to you. God bless. May you know his kindness this week.